Well, welcome to the podcast today, David. Today we're going to talk about art in public places. And so the first question that I have for you is, what has public art done for our amazing downtown?
Well, first of all, I think it's really fitting, Matthew, that we talk about art in public places, or like I like to refer it, art in the built environment, right? So on this show, we talk about places, spaces, and people. And I think that's the impact that art makes, is in the places, the spaces, and the people. So the first thing I would tell you that art has done for us in our community in downtown Edmond is it's been a differentiator. It's set us apart from other communities. And so we have invested a lot in public art.
How do you think it's differentiated us? What does that mean exactly?
Well, just this morning, I was given a tour of downtown Edmond to an investor, and we were walking through, and I specifically, intentionally did not point out any of our public art as we took the walk downtown. Of course, it's a beautiful day today. That helps, right? But so I didn't say anything until we got down about 2 blocks. And I could tell he was looking at it, and I said, "What are you looking at?" And he goes, "There's a lot of art, a lot of public art in your streets." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "We have a public art program." And I said, "That's an important piece of what we do in Edmond." And so,
what do you think that told that investor? And by the way, I know this investor that you're talking about, and he's contemplating approximately a $60 million investment in the downtown Edmond area. So it's a meaningful amount, and the sales tax that would come off that would be significant. Everybody wins. Edmond Public Schools win. The city wins. Everybody. But when he responded the way he did, what do you think he was thinking about?
Well, I know what he was thinking about because I asked.
Okay.
I just looked at him, and we stopped, and I spent I probably spent 5 to 10 minutes talking about the public art program in Edmond. But I started it off, and I said, "What does that mean to you? What does that show about a community that would invest in public art?" And he told me, he said, "You're exactly right." He said, "It's an investment. It shows me that you care. It shows me that you are looking long-term in your community and that you're there for quality of life and for a diverse group of people." So I thought that was pretty good. So that was a nice lead-in for me to tell him about our program and how it is we accomplished it in downtown Edmond.
So how did we accomplish it in downtown Edmond? What's been that? I mean, you've been around downtown for the last decade or so, right?
Yeah, so it really goes back to a guy by the name of Randall Shadid that was a mayor. He was city councilman, art lover. He's an art dealer. And when he became mayor, he instituted a program.
Can you say art dealer? That sounds a little nefarious, doesn't it? Art salesman? Is it a dealer?
No,
it's
art
a dealer.
dealers.
I'm actually going to see Randall. We're going to go to look at art here in about an hour and a half.
Okay, well,
in the state.
Have him tell you about his art galleries that he's had in downtown Edmond.
All right, we'll do it.
Okay, so when he became mayor, he instituted a program, or maybe even when he was on council, that the city council would budget a sum of money. At that time, it was $100,000. And then the city would match a citizen's investment up to $30,000 in a piece of public art. So, for instance, if you wanted to put a statue, because at that time they were all statues, Randall has an affinity for statues.
Bronzes.
We all know
we call them bronzes.
Bronzes, okay, bronzes.
Not statues.
Yes, not statues, bronzes. So he likes bronzes. So if you decided you wanted to buy bronze, and a good bronze will cost you $80,000 today, right? But back then it wasn't $80,000, but today it is. If you want to do that, the city will pay up to $30,000 to match your investment. So if it's less than 60, we'll pay for half of it. But if it's more than 60, we'll pay $30,000, and then you would pay the remainder. So we've been doing that ever since, for probably 20 years. And so that's a lot of art for $100,000 a year on the match, right?
Yes. So you mentioned bronzes, right, or statues in your word.
Yes.
Very sophisticated
Statues.
word.
Exactly.
But obviously art takes a lot of forms, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about art in the public space, what does that mean to you? And what does it mean to the city?
Well, when I got on city council, first of all, we raised the matching amount to $300,000. So that helped a lot to increase the amount of art.
That'd be the annual budget?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the matching part.
The matching part, okay.
Right. So that helped. to increase it, but it also helped us to diversify. And at that time, I appointed a gentleman named Matthew Myers with Switchgrass Investments.
I've heard of this guy.
Yes. Indeed. I appointed. Each council person gets an appointment to something called the Edmond Visual Arts. Is it council or commission?
Edmond Visual Arts.
You're on it.
So I'm on it, so I should know it. We just call
commission.
it the EVAC.
Okay, EVAC.
Yeah.
So what is there, 7 members or whatever, but each council person gets to appoint a person to EVAC,
Right.
and then the mayor has several.
Right.
And then there's one from UCO, and so there's, it's a diverse group of citizens on this committee. So they have to approve everything that's paid for by the match from the city of Edmond. So that just guarantees that that the citizens are represented in the art that we pick. So one of the things that I did when you came on, you had a little different interest in art. You thought that we needed more diverse art and not just bronzes, which is exactly what we did. And with the increase in the investment that we were willing to make from the city's standpoint, we were able to do some different things. So the following is what we did. You actually got some designs for something called the Love Lock.
Yeah, Key to Your Heart is what I call it.
Key to Your Heart. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a love metal statue.
And inspired by a bridge, I believe, just outside of Paris.
So you put a lock on it with your lover and throw the key away, right? Representing your love, right? Okay, so you did that one. You did the
I'm grateful.
I'm grateful for, where you get chalk and you write it on there, and then they clean it off when it gets full, and people start over again. It's been
That may be one of the more popular pieces of art in downtown Edmond.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to try to measure the number of people who've written on that wall since inception. I'm going to guess it's well over 100,000 people now.
Well, I know all the people that have worked for you and around you will probably have a pretty good idea, because they're the ones that have to go clean that wall, replace the chalk and the
Steve
erasers.
Gibson, thank you very much.
Exactly.
He's diligent about cleaning it.
Yes. So the point is we started doing some different things like that. We call that interactive art, because you're actually interacting with the art. You're writing on the wall.
Right.
You're putting the lock on there, and so you're interacting with the art. And so you were instrumental in that, and people supported you in that and joined with you in that, and we've done a lot like that since then. And then secondly, we started doing murals. As a part of the Vibes program, we had a big contest where we
Right.
had people come in and paint and murals, and then we gave awards and things. And we ended up getting, I think, 13 murals out of that thing. They're just beautiful around town. So now we're getting to be known for that. So now we have different types of art, and I was just reading something to you earlier. Art is in the eye of the beholder. And so we need to recognize that just because I don't care for it or it's not what I would do, that doesn't mean somebody else won't lie, and it won't provoke feelings in somebody else. And that's what we try to do with this public art. That answer your question?
Yeah, so on this Visual Arts Council that we sit on, it is a really...
I don't sit on it anymore.
You don't sit on it anymore, but it is roughly a 7-member board. There could be a little bit more, a little bit less. But we vote on these, right? But it's also open to the public. So anytime the public can go sit in and observe and ask questions and comment and things like this. And we really try to stay down the middle in terms of the art. We don't want to be too confrontational, or there are certain topics that we want to stay away from, right? We don't want to offend and those kinds of things. But it has been pretty inspirational. I will tell you that when you first mentioned that to me, or maybe Randall mentioned or suggested to me that I should join this, my first question I remember was, how long are the meetings? Yeah. So as many of you know, I struggle sitting in long meetings, and a long meeting to me is more than about 20 or 30 minutes. And so these things can go on about an hour, maybe longer in some cases. And so,
we lose you after about 15 minutes.
I don't really do well in those. But I got to tell you, I thought I was going to be uninspired. I thought they were going to be boring. I thought... it was like a traditional board meeting, B-O-R-E-D, board, like I'm bored. But I got to tell you, I fell in love with art. And so, as a matter of fact, my wife and I took a trip to Santa Fe in May of this year. And 2 weeks from now, we're going back because we only covered half of this one art district, and so we want to go back. So it's really opened my eyes to public art, but it's also really changed how I view development and the importance of art in development. That's probably a good topic for another day, Because when I think about art, I think about the human emotion that people experience. Probably like an artist, a musician who sings. We have one in the room here. They're very interested in the response from the audience. And art does the same thing. When I build a building or a house or apartments or a mixed-use building, I'm always thinking about what is the interaction. And that's the most important thing to me, is how people are going to interact with that and what are the emotions they're going to feel when they experience the real estate.
Places, spaces, and people.
Spaces, places, and people. Exactly right. So
places, spaces, and people.
Yeah. Well, maybe dyslexia too. I got another dilemma in my life that I got to do.
You're right. So what I refer to it as public art as a built environment.
Right.
And I'll tell you, one of the best guys that you could talk to and have a conversation with is Richard McCowan. Richard studied.
He was an artist, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He's an artist. He studied art professionally in Europe, and then he came back and joined with his family's home building company and development company. And so he's brilliant when it comes to utilizing art in the built environment.
Okay.
He's really good at it.
I'll give you a second to think about your favorite piece of art in all of Edmond. Mm-hmm. I'm going to think about this. This was not pre-planned, and then I'm going to give you mine. You want to go first?
Sure.
What is your favorite piece of art? Lay it on us. And why?
Art that we've purchased as public art? I'm going to say Humpty Dumpty. It's out in front of, I don't know which one it's out in front of. Do you know which building it's in front of?
Yeah, I think it's in front of the city building.
Okay. Have you know the piece?
I do know the piece, yeah.
It's probably my
I know
favorite.
the nursery
Whimsical.
rhyme. The Humpty
right?
Dumpty sat on a wall.
Yes, and that's what it is, and it's whimsical. I like that about it.
So it's a whimsical piece.
I like that.
Of all the pieces in Edmond, that's not the one I would have picked for you, it being your favorite. the one that's probably the most popular among 8 to 12-year-olds, by the way.
There you go.
Okay, I'll go with two, actually. I'm going to go with the I'm Grateful wall. So
only got one.
Well, I'm making the rules here, so we're going to change it. So I'm going to go with the I'm Grateful wall, not because we inspired that one. It had some ideas on that, but that was actually right before COVID. I'd seen a piece like this in another city, and it said, "Before I die, ... Right. I want you to go up there and you'd write, I want to skydive, I want to go to Paris, I want to see the Louvre," whatever it was. But being COVID the way it was, we're like, well,
we had hours and hours of consideration.
That is not going to work.
Say.
And I believe it was Cinda over with the city who said, "Hey, how about I'm grateful?" Right. And as soon as she said it, we said, that's it. So literally every time that wall is cleaned, within an hour, and provided there's chalk there, which Haley here helps put chalk up on a regular basis, it gets filled up. It's incredible.
Everybody's had that job.
Everybody's had that job. I've cleaned it. I picked up chalk, all kinds of things. So I think the very first thing I ever wrote on there was I'm grateful for my granddaughter. It's a couple of years ago.
I remember.
That was a great one. The other piece that I really like is down right to the south of the post office, which, as many people know, that was the site of the massacre. I believe it was in 1980.
82,
yeah. That's where the term postal comes from. But right there's a heart. And there's a place where you can walk up. You can actually grab a postcard. There's one actually right behind you there, David, if you see one of those. Yeah, that's it. And so you'd grab a postcard like this out of the drawer there, and there's a stamp on it, and you can just write a letter to somebody that you know or love or care about. And there's instructions that say, hey, walk up the street and drop that in the mailbox. And we've gotten some really good feedback and stories over the years of people that have written notes to family members they haven't talked to in months, sometimes years. I've had sons send it to their dad, family members, old friends. And so it's a great way to connect. And we just fund this. It's not something, and the city does. They print the postcards and we put on the stamp. So it's a great partnership with the city. And I love that because it just is that connection point between family and friends. So that'd probably be my second favorite, or my equal to the I'm Grateful wall as well.
Well, I would expect that because of your involvement in those. You were very passionate about both those, and I really like both of those. The other thing that I think about a lot is the responsibility, particularly of city council and staff, to utilize the resources of the city effectively. And so one of the things when I was on city council, particularly when we more than doubled the budget that we were going to spend on matching art, was what does it have to accomplish? What are we trying to do? And I think it's really, really important when you're using public money to try to evaluate that. And so we did. And Josh and I would have conversations like this all the time. And this particular one I had was this. Number one, it had to contribute to the quality of life for our citizens. Okay, that was the first one. And the
So you
second
mean
one,
positive, something positive, right?
yeah, and it could be just as
Affirmative.
simple as when you walk by it and you see that Humpty Dumpty, or you see the wall, that it would evoke an emotion of, I'm thankful for my granddaughter, just like you said, or I'm going to write. Our kids write messages on the cards and send them to
Sure.
their grandmother. It just, those are quality of life things, I believe. Secondly is economic development. I'm a firm believer, after owning Airbnbs down here, that people come here to see our public art, and when they come here, they interact with the public art, and they'll come back. So I think it's done a great job of contributing to economic development.
I've
as
actually
well.
seen tourists who are coming down Route 66 across the United States. Matter of fact, quite a bit of foreigners from out of the country that have stopped here and heard about our art and are doing a walk in downtown Edmond. I've talked to people from Sweden, from France, from all over Europe about our art and give them the rough tour of it. But it's been an amazing, because I think a lot of times people think, well, I'm not a fan of bronzes, or I'm not a fan of murals, and because I don't like it, therefore we don't need it, when in fact, sometimes we do, and sometimes we're in the minority in some of those things. So obviously art is, throughout the centuries, has proven to be, really important for the urban core in a city.
And although you and I tend to focus on downtown, it is important that the viewing audience know that we place this art throughout the city. It's not just in downtown, but we do have we have a lot of it in downtown Edmond.
And most of the parks have art as well.
The art,
Arcadia,
they do.
which I hike out there every day. There's a lot of art out there, which I enjoy. It is. So, all right, any final thoughts on the art before we wrap up today, David?
I'm thankful for it, and I'm thankful for the public's investment in it, and just the vision that Randall had. And I will say this, Savannah Whitehead and Shannon Price at the Edmond, let me get it right, Edmond Fine Arts Institute. They've done a brilliant job. And I don't know if you're familiar with them much, but they do children's classes, they do adult classes on art, and they hold openings on Thursdays once a month for artists.
Oh, yeah.
And then they do vibes.
They
And
do an
so-
amazing job. As a matter of fact, I tried to sign up for one of their pottery classes, being the fine artist that I am, but they were actually filled up. So I've got to get on the waiting list to get in there. But
Well, I can tell
want
you-
to learn how to. I think they call it throwing pottery, which is
If you were there, it would be.
Which is yeah. People would see my art and throw it for sure.
Well, my kids went there when they were little. It used to be further down on Broadway. I'm
Okay.
glad they're in downtown Edmond, and I'm glad they're a part of the art scene. And they're both brilliant.
Yeah, they're amazing. They
Ladies,
do a great
and
job.
I'm really proud of what they do there, and look forward to participating with them more in the future.
David,
So, yes.
man, thanks for joining us for
Yes.
Art in the City. It was a great episode.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.